Welcome to the studio. Today I'm going to share with you how I made this really pretty lit snowdrift base for our Yuletide reindeer piece. Whether you're making a base for your Christmas village or for another Christmas decoration, I think that this tutorial will be really helpful. I learned a lot along the way, and I can't wait to share it with you. To construct the base, the very first thing that you want to do is stain the bottom piece. I used dark walnut stain for my piece. These other pieces won't show once we get the final piece built. You also get a dowel that is pre-sanded for your reindeer. So you want to go ahead and get that stained too while you have the stain out. Of course, you get, with the order of the Yuletide reindeer, you get all 3 layers of the main reindeer and then 2 extra layers for the collar that go on both sides. And of course, this is glory that I'm holding up here. There are 3 total reindeer designs that are available. So the very first thing that we're going to do is use the Star Bond glue to glue the 3rd layer to the 4th layer. So you see we have 4 layers here. And when I glue this, I just want to use a little bit of this glue around the edges. I want to stay clear of this opening as much as I can because we don't want to glue our dowel in. So once you add the glue, we just want to line up these openings. You can use some little clips if you need to, but I do highly suggest that you go ahead and put your dowel down into the opening as the glue is setting so that you can make sure that this dowel is perfectly lined up. Once that is set, we will go ahead and glue on all of the other pieces exactly the same way. These bottom 2 layers have an opening where the battery pack will sit. So the 3rd layer goes on top, and again, use your dowel to line them up, and then glue on the 4th layer. So the openings that we have here, this one is for the main dowel, and this one is where the lights will come up through. So take your time, make sure you get a good seal on those with the Star Bond glue. I really love the Star Bond. Just as a side note, I don't use the accelerator. Just the Star Bond is good enough. So once you have all of those glued, we're ready for the next step. To start building the base, I'm going to build a little bit of an armature to hold the clay up. My hope with this armature was that it would save me some clay. I wouldn't have to use only expensive clay for building the base. So with the aluminum foil, I'm just going for a little bit of a loose shape. I'm not trying to really pack the foil in. I want to keep it light, kind of airy, and just build a basic free form that I can build the clay on top of. So as I turn it around, you can see that I'm really trying to keep the foil out of the way of the 2 dowels. So one of these dowels represents where the lights will come up through, and the other one, of course, is holding up our reindeer. I think by leaving this center area open, as our customer or our family that we gift this piece to, as they use it and take the dowel in and out as they store it, the foil won't have so much of a chance of getting in the way. So that was really what I was thinking about. I love to build pieces that come apart, that can be stored somewhat flat, save a little bit of storage space. So I was thinking about all of those things as I designed and engineered this piece. Once I got the basic shape on, I began to think about how tall do I want this drift to be. I want it to be big enough that I have enough room to wrap some lights around it, not so big that it takes away from the reindeer herself, and not so big that, of course, it takes a lot of extra clay. The clay, the air dry clay that I'm going to be using, and I'll show you that in just a moment, it's pretty expensive. And so I was trying to keep that in mind as I was eyeing how I wanted the shape to be. I'm going to be using Apoxy Sculpt for my piece. I like that it's air dry and I like that it's so durable once it hardens. It wasn't terribly easy to work with, I will say that. It's so thick and dense. I don't know if it would have been easier to work with had I warmed it a little bit, maybe in a warm water bath. But I'm using equal parts here. I have 1 ounce of each part, and I'm just twisting it and mixing it the best that I can. It will still look marbled when you finish your mixing, as long as there's no big sections of one part or the other, it's perfectly fine. And now I'm going to start rolling out the clay. I just want a very flat piece of clay that I can drape over this armature of the foil that we built. And like I said before, it's very, very thick. So it's really going to take some elbow grease and some muscles to really roll this out in a pretty thin piece. We want it thin enough that it drapes well, but not so thin that the foil begins to break through. So I really just rolled and got it at pretty much as thin as I could get it. And here I'm using part of the wood base to mark out where those openings for the dowels will be. Remember, these openings, one of them is for the dowel that holds the reindeer, the other one is for the lights that come up through the base. So I just made both of those holes so that I would easily be able to just drape it over. And don't worry here, if yours tears or doesn't go on perfectly, that's completely okay. We can always come back in later and um, put a little collar around those openings, which I did end up doing. But all of this is going to be hidden around these dowels, so don't worry. And the same is true with the clay itself. This doesn't have to be perfect. We are going to be coming back in and covering all of it with glass. So any little imperfection that you might see is going to be easily covered later. I would recommend using gloves when working with it. There are some chemical things happening when you mix these two parts, so it's just nice to not have that on your skin. If you need to, as you're going around here, lift up the piece and lift up the piece of clay and just push some of that foil back underneath if you feel like it's showing too much. It just takes a little bit of finagling with it. Just take your time and enjoy the process. I'm using my water mist here, which worked out really nice. I could just wet my gloves a little bit and be able to smooth over some areas. I am using a palette knife here to just push some of that bottom edge back. I did want my bottom base to show just a little bit. I thought that the difference between where the snowdrift is versus the little bit of base showing was kind of pretty. You just want to be sure that you really clean any tools that you use because this stuff does dry just rock hard. I have a little bit of a wet paper towel there to wipe off the base, just trying to keep it as clean as I could as I was going forward. And here I've rolled out another bit of clay. I think that this ends up being about another ounce of each. I did have a little bit left over, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to mix again. So I rolled it out and then I used my palette knife to cut a perfectly flat area. So now I can work from the bottom up and have a really nice base, that really nice bottom. And I really liked how this worked out. This is one of my resin tools. It's a nice little plastic tool so I can really push some of that base in. And you just work all the way around. Remember, like I said before, this doesn't have to be perfect. All of this is going to have glass and resin over the top of it. I decided I didn't like that piece there, so I went ahead and removed it. And then I decided I wanted to build a little flare at the top. And this was kind of an in the moment decision that I made, but I really like how it turned out. It really does a nice job of hiding that opening where the dowels go in. So once you get it all set, it's a good idea to go ahead and take the dowels out just to make sure that they don't get set up inside of this piece as it dries. And then we just want to let it air dry for 24 hours. I sprayed a little bit of water there on my surface so that I could take the Q-tip around and just make sure that my base was completely clean. This picture shows the piece the next day after it is hardened. I have gone in and painted white paint on the piece first to make it really pretty, and then I covered the white paint with some metallic paint. I just thought that's really going to show up really well underneath of this glass. So I've started to build the crushed glass on the little snowdrift clay form that we have. And um, it's a little bit of a mess, but it's really fun to work with the UV resin. So what I did is just mixed a little bit of the UV resin with my favorite crushed glass from Michael's. And I think that I haven't looked for this year because I stocked up last year, but I believe that this is a seasonal item at Michael's. So if you see it, grab a few containers of it. But basically, what I'm trying to do as I build this glass around the shape is just to leave some different areas for the wire to wrap around. So you can kind of see I'm just playing with how this is going to wrap around. And you can see by leaving some of these little areas, and the glass kind of makes it on its own too, we'll be able to really wrap these lights around in kind of an organic way. I really didn't want to do a concentric like staircase, spiral staircase of lights. So let me just show you how we're going to build this. I do have a little cup of alcohol here just to dip my tools in, clean things as I go. I also do have a paper towel that is covered with alcohol so I can try to keep my fingers from being too messy. This is my UV light. I really love this light from Resiners. If you're using UV resin and you're wanting to do anything that's a little bit bigger, it's nice to have a little bit of a bigger lamp. And this one is really adjustable and fun. Um, but as we're building, we kind of have to hold the shape up so we can have a somewhat flat surface. So it's a little bit tricky to, it's one of those things where you need like 5 hands. So the big thing that I'm finding is don't mix too much of this at once. So I just have a little cup, little silicone cup. This little cup comes in some resin kits. I've gotten them with like resin stirrers and things like that. But I'm just going to drizzle in enough of the UV resin just to glue the glass. I don't want it to be drippy. I don't want it to be puddly. Just enough to lightly coat that glass. And then I have found that the easiest way to get it onto your piece is to actually squeeze it out of this little cup. So again, I'm thinking about little patches of glass. So I'm just going to use this little tool, this little cup, to dump this onto the piece. And then I can come back in with my little spoon and try to think about little channels that this wire is going to go through. So I'm just going to move it away from that this that is already cured, just to leave a little spot for the wire to go through. It doesn't have to be perfect because the wire will catch on some of these edges of the glass anyway. Just push it together, thinking about little patches of glass. And then I'm going to move this little cup to the side so that when I turn it on my UV light, it doesn't cure what's in my little cup there. And then I'm going to turn on my lamp and just cure it for about 15 seconds. Go ahead and make sure I get my lamp all the way turned off. And now we can see very quickly that that little patch of glass, I was going to say ice, the little patch of glass that we've put here is set up. So I'm going to keep going around this piece, just enjoying the process. It's messy. It's gonna look messy. It's okay. Just continue to build the layers. If we need to come back in and add a little bit more glass, it'll be much easier once we have these patches done to come back in and fill in some little areas if we need to. The hardest part is just getting some patches of glass down so we have a surface that will hold the glass. While I'm here, I did want to point out in this piece of wood, there's a little imperfection in this in the piece of birch plywood. Um, I'm going to fix that with a little bit of Star Bond black glue. So I'll be able to just add some of the Star Bond right in there, wait until it dries very quickly, and then if I need to, I can sand it down or fix any edges, but that will nicely fill in that and make that not a problem. So I'm going to continue on and keep building. Um, I haven't decided exactly what I want to do with the top. My idea here was to have a little place where the lights could come inside and sort of shine up from the base on the reindeer. But we'll see how that goes as we keep building. Okay, I have a pretty good base here. This doesn't have to all be covered. Um, Once this piece is setting up on a mantle or on a table, it's going to look beautiful with the lights. I am just coming back around and just looking for any real areas that I do want to cover, areas that um, weren't perfect when we did the clay part. And I really have found that just kind of squeezing this glass onto the piece works really well. If you had something like a little bean bag or upstairs, I've got some of those rice heat packs that you put in the microwave. Something like that to hold your piece up on the side would be really helpful because it really is one of those things that takes more hands than two. I'm just going in and doing little sections, just curing it really quickly, again, just for around 15 seconds, just to get that set. I'll turn the UV lamp off and come up here and add a little bit up here. I'm about out. Doing just the small little batches in this little cup has worked very, very well. So it looks really, really pretty, and I know it's gonna look beautiful with lights. As I was coming in with some of this glass, I was purposefully trying to leave some areas where the glass sticks up. I think that those will be very helpful when we go to you know, try to weave the lights through. Um, I like this glass because it's not overly sharp, but at this point, it's pretty much done. At this point, you know, you could take a little break, put a little bit of wrap the glass around it. I'm sorry, wrap the lights around it and just see what it looks like. I did add a little bit of glass down in this opening where these flares are at the top. Remember, one of these holes is for the dowel for the reindeer to stand up in. The other hole is for the lights to come up through the base. So if I can turn it over here for you, I will be showing you how our battery pack is going to set in here. This hole is the hole that the dowel comes down through that the reindeer stands on. This hole is the hole that goes up inside for the lights to come through. So I'm going to go ahead and take off my gloves and we'll start to wrap some lights around and see what it looks like. I just set Holly on here so you could kind of see how it all goes together. Pull her down a little bit so you can see. You can see here where the dowel is in the opening that I talked about a little bit earlier. I'm going to go ahead and remove her just so I don't knock her off. And we can go ahead and get our lights to go up through. Remember, we want to go in this opening that's closest to the battery pack holder. And I'll just simply pull it all the way through. Lucy was having a good time with this wire the other day on my desk, so she's got it all mangled a little bit. I really like doing the lights this way because if the lights ever just stopped working, my customer who purchased it would easily be able to just remove these and replace them. I am going to be, my idea is to put a little piece of Velcro to hold this in. I might not have to. It might be okay just setting up inside of there. We'll see how that goes. I think that what I want to do is push this hard plastic part of the lights back down into the opening. And then I can just start wrapping the lights around. I wanted there to be a couple of lights down in this little flared area on the top. The nice thing about that flare is that it sort of hides a little bit of what's going on in that opening. And then we can just start to wrap our lights a little bit like putting lights on a Christmas tree. We just want it to be, tight enough that it holds the lights. Just find some of the natural little tunnels that go through the glass. Just holding it down with one some while I wrap it around the glass with my other hand. This is my first time wrapping this particular piece, so I'm trying to keep an eye on how many lights are left, just to make sure that I can get all the way around the piece. If you find that it just you don't have enough glass to really hold the wire, it's very, very easy with the UV resin to just come back in and give yourself another little piece of glass that stands up to hold your wire. It may take you a couple of times of going around just until you get a real feel for how many lights you have, how much, a strand of lights will cover. I know that on Amazon they have other lengths of lights that you can also get. I kind of like this opening. I don't know if you can see that. Um, this opening here that sort of goes down into the glass. And I think that that's, your tendency as you're first putting this together is to fill all of those spots. But I really think that having some of those openings where the lights can kind of get with, into the glass really helps, really looks pretty. I like to have a light in this area, so I'm trying to wrap it around and finesse it to get back there. Let's take a look at where we are here. This has popped back up a little bit, but that's fine. We can push it back down in. And maybe even need a little bit more glass up here to hold that wrap. I might do that. But I like the way that it's looking here. I'm just taking a look at like how many lights are in here and how many lights I have left. I'll be linking the lights that I'm using here. Just so you have an idea of, the kind of lights that maybe you should get. I'm trying to eyeball, how to come back this way too. But I think that that gives you an idea. I'm going to play with it just a little bit more. I think that I will probably come back in and add just a couple of more higher areas of glass just to give me, something to wrap the lights around. But um, I really like it. It's really, really pretty. I'll be taking some pictures of it on my mantle when it's dark this evening so that you get a real view of how pretty this is. Um, like I said, it really does take at least one try going through to get a feel for how many lights you have. I'd like to have a few more lights over here. So I will likely be pulling this all apart, adding a little bit more glass, not to fill in these holes, but just to add some high areas to hold the lights as I wrap it. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I had so much fun creating this tutorial, from the painting tutorial, which is available on the Patreon channel, to how I built this snowdrift. It really has been months of planning and figuring out all the little problems that we had to solve along the way. So please subscribe. I have a lot more coming in 2026, and I can't wait to see what we paint next.